Hello, welcome to This Week in Politics. Well, this week was really kind of eventful. As you recall, last week we had the hurricane in Florida, Hurricane Harvey. And this week, as I record on Sunday, Hurricane Irma is about to hit the coast in Florida. I understand it's already hit Key West, and from the video I've seen, it looks pretty bad. So let's pray for everybody down in Florida and in the path of that Hurricane Irma. And I do pray for them. So today, or this last week in politics, there was basically two big events that happened. The first one was Trump eliminated D.A.C.A, which stands for the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. Now, what that means is, here's a little bit of history on how this all happened. Obama tried to get through legislation when he was in office and couldn't get it through. So he took executive action, which was unconstitutional, by the way, and through executive order established this D.A.C.A. And what it did is it gave legal status to the children of illegal people coming into the country. As an example, if a Mexican family came up and they had a 5-year-old kid, the 5-year-old kid and the family were given legal status for a period of time. Now, and here are the specifics on how they had to qualify. It was for every 2 years. It had to be renewed every 2 years. They had to work legally. They received full federal benefits. Now, when I say full federal benefits, I mean free education, free health, Section 8 housing, food stamps, and all of that. And they are illegal, and the only reason they're getting it is because they have a kid with them. So now, when I said that Trump eliminated it, what I meant was, instead of coming out and just eliminating it like he said he was going to during the election, he came out and he said, I'm going to eliminate it in 6 months. And right now, today, I'm going to ship it over and give notice to Congress to give them an opportunity to come up with legislation to replace D.A.C.A. That's not what we elected you to do, Trump. We elected you to get rid of it. Illegal is illegal. Now, the libs are going to try to sell this in the next 6 months by portraying every tear-jerking, heart-wrenching story they can find or make up to pull public opinion in their point. Secondly, they're going to try to tell the American people that the average age of these D.A.C.A children is very young, and it's not the average. By the way, you can be qualified for this up to the age of 36, believe it or not. The average age of these people is actually about 32. So when you think about, or 26, the average age is 26. So when you think about, Obama was in office and instituted this just like 3 or 4 years ago, and the average age is 26. That means the average age when they came in was 21, 22, 23. By American standards, those are not children. So why they made this, so what this act really is no matter what the name says, this was blanket amnesty for anybody who had kids. Now think about that. If you're illegal and you have somebody that you say is your kid, they can be all the way up to the age of 36. and you have legal status. All you have to do is those things that I told you in the beginning. So this is no hard luck story where the kid gets. So now what they're saying is they're going out and they're interviewing all of these, and they're trying to find the youngest ones they can. Like I heard one the other day saying she was a high school student and she had dreams and she had been accepted to college, and now she doesn't know if she's going to be deported tomorrow or not. And here's what I have to say. American kids have dreams, and American kids have been accepted to college, and American kids don't know what tomorrow brings either. The difference is your parents made an illegal choice. I'm sorry that you have to pay the consequences. If an American child's parent makes a bad choice, i.e., breaks the law and goes to jail, they don't get amnesty because they have kids and get to stay out of jail. They still have to pay the consequences. The child pays consequences because the dad isn't there, and the dad pays consequences because he goes to jail. Same should be true with you. Your parent made a bad choice. You and your parent should go back to the country that you came from and come back and do it legally, according to our immigration laws and standards, not by an executive whatever that Obama made up. So I'm really disappointed in Trump. And as I've said all along, I've never been fully on board with Trump because I don't trust him. I think he would throw his own mother under the bus if it would get him what he wanted. And right here, he threw the American voters under the bus because that's not what he campaigned on, and that is not what we elected him for. Now, there is talk going around that he's going to make another deal with the Democrats, and to where there's going to be amnesty listed in the bill that they send to him, and in return, he's going to get money for his wall. Connecting the two is absolutely wrong. The money for the wall should stand on its own, and those that vote against it, the American people will vote them out. We voted for the wall. We want the wall. We can spend hundreds of billions of dollars taking care of other countries. We can certainly spend $100 billion to protect our country, without question. What seems to be missing in this whole argument, in my humble opinion, nobody's talking about right and wrong. Nobody's talking about legal and illegal. The press, the politicians, and everybody seems to want to talk about children, which is absolutely asinine to me. In the first place, as I said earlier, it's not affecting children. These are adults. What happened to right and wrong? Is it right that the children of illegal aliens take your child's spot in college? Is it right that a child of an illegal alien, which makes them illegal, by the way, an illegal alien take your tax dollars to have a house and food and take that away from an American who needs those benefits? Is that right? Or is that wrong? The argument needs to be framed around right and wrong, legal and illegal, not around children and adults. And I'm not hearing that. I have not heard one argument, one interview, one talking head talk about right and wrong or legal and illegal, which is driving me crazy. What we need to remember in every argument that we hear about this, these children are illegal. I don't care about their story. Hey, you and I both know the government doesn't care about your story. They don't care about my story. Why would they care about illegal alien stories? Because the Democrats want their vote, and that's what this is about. They are illegal, and we need to remember that as this whole argument is unraveled and played out right before our eyes. It's not about the story. It's not about the children. It's not about the people. It's not about the alien. It's about right and wrong, legal and illegal. And I'm very disappointed in Trump. I don't understand why everybody is so quick to blame the Republicans and the politicians instead of blaming the parents. The parents are the ones that came here illegally. The parents are the one that made the decision. The parents are the one that put their children in this position. The government didn't put them there. The politicians didn't put them there. The Republicans didn't put them there. The conservatives did not put them there. Their parents put them there. Blame the parents, but deal with the whole problem. The parents, the children, and any relatives that came before. It's like the fruit of the tree in a legal argument. You can't have evidence presented in a case that was gotten illegally. And anything that's associated with that is not permitted in court, right? Right? So if there's a family in a house and one of them is illegal and that all of the fruit that comes from that is also illegal, and they should all be dealt with and they should all be sent back. And I don't care if it's 5 generations. If the fruit of that tree is poison, then it's all poison and it all has to go. That's what I'm not hearing. That's what I'm not seeing. I don't understand it. I don't know how Americans' sense of right and wrong, good and bad, have gotten so far off of the beaten path that nobody is even acknowledging the fact. Nobody's even saying it out loud. These are illegals. The legal immigration, I'm fine with, as long as the laws are lived by. They have to be vetted. They have to go to work. They don't get any government assistance. They have to come in with X amount of money in their pocket, and they have to have a skill that is needed by our country. That I'm fine with. It's the illegals that I have a problem with, and every problem that they cause needs to be dealt with. So if a family comes in and they brought a child with them, and that child is now 26 and married and has 3 kids, the original parents, the child, the wife, and the 3 kids, unless the wife is a naturalized citizen, she can stay. But even if she is a naturalized American citizen, everybody else has got to go. And she has a choice. She can stay here or she can go with the family. The press will say, we're breaking up families. No, they're making the decision to break up the family. If she wants to keep the family together, let her move down there with them. All I want is for the government to enforce the legal laws. Enforce them, not just give them lip service. If they're illegal, get them out. We should not even be having this debate. That's what is so frustrating to me. Now, as I said earlier, the beginning of this whole argument of D.A.C.A was started by an unconstitutional overreach of executive authority by Obama under his administration. Immigration law, according to the Constitution, is very plainly spelled out, is to be done by Congress, not by the executive branch. He clearly overstepped it as patently, obviously unconstitutional. Now, this whole debate is going to dominate for the next 6 months. Now, let me give you an idea of how many children we're talking about. We're talking about 750,000, 750,000, and the majority of them are between the ages of 25 and 36. Okay, so 750,000 out of 300 million. That is a very, very small percentage. Once again, the liberal press has taken a doggy's tail and allowing it to wag the dog. This is absolutely insane to me. This should not even be an issue. This should not even be on anybody's radar. This should be legal and illegal. You're illegal, out you go. End of conversation. I don't even understand that. It is just so frustrating to me. It's patently unconstitutional. It's a, a, a minuscule percentage of the population, and we're consuming our time with this when we are not consuming our time with the agenda that the American people elected Trump to do, i.e., tax reform. We spent the whole week this week talking about D.A.C.A and the hurricane. That means we spent a whole week not talking about tax reform. And tax reform needs to be done by the end of November, which gives them about 2 months. There's 1 week gone that we're not going to get it done. Now, there is one argument that I do think is going to get buried in here, and it's not going to be talked about, but I think this is important. Remember the example I gave you a minute ago about they brought in the kids and then they had 3 kids while they were here? Under American law currently, those 3 kids are legal residents because they were born in this country. I think we need to do away with that. I think it all goes back to the fruit of the tree. If 2 American citizens have kids, then their kids should be, or if even one of them is, then I think they should have citizenship up to a certain age. And then at that age, they need to apply for citizenship. You know, because a lot of times what the scam is somebody will come in illegally from another country, marry a naturalized citizen, and then run away, or it's a sham of a marriage. And a lot of times it's for money. So when they have kids, now the kids are legal. It's just a whole scam. And I think one of the steps we can take to get rid of it is to eliminate this birthright of citizenship. That needs to be conditional. It needs to, you need to meet certain standards to meet that. And I think that's a discussion worth having. That will eliminate, because a lot of these people are coming over here bringing their kids, wanting them to have a better life. Well, who doesn't? But that doesn't mean that we should, at the Americans' expense, give it to them. Just because you were born physically on this land does not make you an American. Theoretically, using that, we could take all the pregnant women from Mexico in their 8th month, bring them over here, let them have their babies. Their babies are legal. Now they're American citizens. If we did that every month, for every day for 12 months, we'd have a whole generation of Mexican Americans in this country. That's the dumbest law I've ever heard. Another thing that I did not like about D.A.C.A, and I mentioned this earlier, was ever since Bannon was unceremoniously kicked out of the White House that week, and I think I mentioned this in an earlier program, Trump did 3 flip-flops that week. This is another flip-flop. He campaigned on getting rid of D.A.C.A day 1 when he got into office. Well, this is month 8, and he's giving them 6 more months to do something before he eliminates it. It's another flip-flop. It's another example of the Democrats and the deep state taking control of the presidency. And that's the bigger issue. That's the bigger problem. One of the things that they are going to try to do, I believe, when they come up with legislation, and they will, trust me, um, that no one is going to be deported, but they'll take away the government rights. I think that's where Trump wants to go with this. He's concentrating too much on the government money and not enough concentrating on right and wrong and good and bad. As I said, this has always been a problem with me for me with Trump. He is not concerned about ideology and right and wrong. All he wants to do is make a deal so that he gets what he wants, which is fine, but what he wants is not what we elected him for. We elected him to get rid of D.A.C.A, period. Period. We elected him to get tax reform done quickly. All of the great business news that we're hearing right now is going to come to a crashing halt if they don't get tax reform done by November. And the Democrats know that. And Mitch McConnell knows that. And that's why I promise you it will not get passed. And if it is, it'll be a watered down version. The thing that has moved it is Trump is calling for business taxes to be cut to 15%, to be one of the lowest in the world. Congress is not going to do that. They'll lower it. They'll give it a nominal discount, and Trump will agree with it just to get it done. And that's just frustrating to me. So when he comes out and he says, we've got an agreement, when they come in, they don't get any government rights. No housing, no food stamps, no nothing. But we're not going to export them. So now they're going to become criminals. I mean, that's the dumbest logic I could possibly think of. They're here, and their lifeline that has kept them there is government benefits. If you take away the government benefits and they can't work legally, what are they going to do? You think they're going to voluntarily go back to Mexico? No. They're going to become criminals and stay here. When the right thing to do is to get the papers, round them up, and ship them all back. That's what needs to happen. Do you think if you were in another country illegally, pick any country in the world, and you were there illegally, except Canada. Canada would let you because you're our neighbors. Any country in the world that you were in their country illegally and they caught you, do you think they would have any qualms at all, about putting you in jail, confiscating everything that you own, taking your wife, your kids, putting you all in jail? Do you think they'd have any qualms at all with any of that? Absolutely not. And we can't even come up with getting rid of this overreach of executive authority by Obama. I mean, dang, people, what happened to good and bad and right and wrong? All right. So that's the first one I wanted to talk about. Another one I wanted to talk about, the headline reads, Donald Trump cuts deal with the Democrats. Now, when you hear the deal, this is just funny, okay? So Congress needs to pass a bill to get funding for the victims in Hurricane Harvey and the one coming now, Hurricane Irma. So that had to be done, right? Now they had the debt ceiling issue was coming up at the end of September. So the Republicans wouldn't do it. So he went to the Democrats and said, I'll raise a debt limit. I won't fight you on that one. And we'll give you the money for Harvey and Irma. But in return, I want it extended just to December, not a full year. Well, of course, the Democrats jumped at that. When you lift the debt limit ceiling, what that means is they get to spend more money. That's what Democrats are all about. That's what upset me about Trump. Why did he do that? You know, he's supposed to be all about the money and all about the deal. And the deal that I see is that he lost his authority for 3 months, his leverage on lifting the debt ceiling, and he gave all the money that the Dems wanted for the two hurricanes. Now, I was listening to I can't Ron Paul gave a speech in Congress that I listened to today, and he makes good sense. He said everybody has a big heart, and we want to send and take care of all the people in Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irma. And I'm not opposed to that. What I am opposed to is the congressman just spending our money, not their money, our money, to help them when we send billions and billions of dollars every year to countries around the world that hate us. As an example, I know Pakistan hates us. They have been helping some things, but for the most part, they harbor Al Qaeda. Um, they they gave him safe harbor. Osama bin Laden lived among them openly in Pakistan, and they never turned him in. There was a doctor who finally gave us the location of where he was at. You know where that guy, you know where that doctor's at right now? He's in prison in Pakistan. And yet we give them billions of dollars every year, and they're a nuclear power. Now, I don't know what country our Congress thinks they live in, but that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I mean, we give billions of dollars. Just in the last couple of years, we've given hundreds of billions of dollars to Iran. Iran, who chants in the streets, death to America, burns effigies of our people and our flag uh, in pursuit of nuclear weapons so that they can annihilate the Jews, and we're giving them billions of dollars. Why don't we take the billions of dollars that we ship to these countries that hate us and take care of our own people down in Texas and Florida? That makes more sense than anything I've heard. According to him, the US government borrows $1 million a minute. We have a $20 trillion deficit. How is that going to get paid back? $20 trillion. Now, to the best of my knowledge, we have not gotten our credit rating back to the level it was when Obama came into office. Remember, because of the way they handled the finances, the rating agencies lowered our credit rating. And to my knowledge, we haven't gotten back. And frankly, from what I see, we don't deserve it back. They keep spending and spending, just like here in Illinois. We have a Republican governor and a Democratic Congress. And then we went without a budget for a year and a half, almost 2 years. The Republican governor finally gave in and gave them their budget, and he didn't get any spending cuts. He didn't get anything that he wanted, but the Democrats got their budget. He turned it down, but the Democrats overrode it. They wrote in, I believe it was 5% hike in state income tax, and they increased spending over 5%. So now, before the deal, we have the largest deficit of any state in the country. Our deficit in Illinois is worse than California's was at its worst. This state is run by Democrats, just like California is. The state of Illinois is talking about going bankrupt. And they took a tax increase, which, if it was done temporarily to eliminate the debt, I get it. But you're going to, it's like in a family. You get a pay raise of 10% and you increase your spending by 20%. You're worse off than you were before. Anyway, that's what I feel like happened here with this deal with Trump. I think the real thing he did here was not to lose his leverage. He lost it for 3 months. But I think what he was doing is firing a shot across the bow of the Republicans, because the Republicans have not been, they haven't done anything for Trump. The Republican Party does not want Trump to succeed. So they're slow walking everything that goes through. I think I mentioned in another program, every single time Mitch McConnell has had an opportunity to have an impact for Trump, he goes the opposite. He has within his power to end cloture immediately, which, by the way, is illegal. And with that, he could get all the judgeships done. He could get every one of Trump's appointees. You know, he's got over 500 appointees pending in Congress, and he's only got 50 that have been confirmed. At this point, Obama had over 500 people confirmed and in office. Trump has 50, and Mitch McConnell has it in his power to make that happen, and he's not. So I think Trump is saying, fine. If you're not going to work with me, I'll go work with the Democrats. And every deal that comes up that I want, I'll go find some Democrats and I'll find some Republicans and I'll hobble it together that way, and I won't rely on the party. I think that's the message he's given him. And if that is what he plans on doing, then we as the American people are not going to get what we want. As an example, if he does that with tax reform, the only way the Democrats will climb over that is probably to get tax hikes on business, or tax hikes on the wealthy, and cuts for the lower, and a nominal cut for corporations. He's not going to get what he campaigned for, just like on D.A.C.A. We did not campaign for, nibble around the edges. We want tax reform, and we want major tax cuts, period. And if he goes and tries to hobble it together with Democrats and Republicans, it's not going to happen. And I do want to throw in at this point, the election that is going on down in Alabama sometime this month between Strange and the judge down there. The judge that is running is an absolute Tea Party conservative. So you guys in Alabama, do not vote for Strange. Now, the last poll I heard was he was leading anywhere from, there was several polls, anywhere from 6% to 15%. So he's leading down there, and he's leading handily. But you Alabamans down there, do not stay home. You have to get out and vote to put the judge in there. Now, in a minute, I'm going to talk about the way the Republican and Democratic parties are dead, and what the new parties are, who's in them. But the Republicans establishment is now upset. The establishment, period, is upset with Trump because, not so much because of what he's doing, but because he's managing to get something done. The establishment is slow stepping every single thing and every single step that he takes. And every time he makes a step forward, the establishment gets really aggravated, and they redouble their efforts. Now, there are several reasons that Trump made this deal. And I talked about one of them a minute ago. Republicans were not working with Donald. And again, I can't say that I blame him. But Mitch McConnell is a swamp rat. Paul Ryan is a swamp rat. The majority of the Republicans are swamp rats. The only ones that aren't are the Tea Party. They're all worried about their jobs. They're all worried about their paycheck. They're all worried about the next election, and nobody's worried about the American people. And that's the problem. Now, another reason that Donald could have made this was he needs a deal on tax reform. he got the Republicans' attention for sure with this deal. So if there was one or two that were on the line, he might have swatted them back over on the right side. But also, he did some goodwill with the Democrats, making a deal with them, not leaving them out of the loop, that he might be able to swing one or two Dems over. Now, another possible thing that he will get out of this, if they, and I don't know, I haven't seen the legislation, but one of the deals that I could see that Donald would have made is he could have gone to the Democrats and said, I will give you this, and all I want is 3 months. But what he hasn't told anybody is in the appropriations for when we do the appropriation for Hurricane Harvey and Irma, I want X amount of billions of dollars put in that for the wall so that I can get that started. Now, if he did that, I would go along with that. Then it's a good deal. But the facts that I know right now that the press is reporting, it's a bad deal for Trump. You know, when he was young and he did the art of the deal, this ought to be this deal ought to be called the art of the crumble. I mean, based on what I've seen, Trump got nothing, and he lost his leverage. But if he did get the money in the appropriation bill that's coming up that they worked out with the Democrats, and the Democrats don't fight that, then it's a good deal. Now, here is the political part of how Trump can play this. And if he does it right, he's going to come out looking very good. When he says, I want to make a deal, I don't want to play party politics. The Americans are going to clamor for that. That's good politics. That's why we elected him, not to do party politics. So when the Republicans are upset and crying foul, they're going to have no audience with the American people. You know, as I said, I am not fully on board with Trump, and I never have been. But if he goes in there and starts turning over tables and making deals and getting stuff done, then I'm with him. Deal by deal, I'm with him. But he's done 3 flip-flops in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm not happy with any of them. And D.A.C.A was one of them. And it appears that remember when he said just a couple of weeks ago, we'll shut the government down to get money for the wall. He gave up his leverage till December. None of that makes any sense to me. Now, having said the benefits of the reasons that he might have made the deal, let's just a couple of words of caution. If Donald made a deal with the Democrats, that was you scratch my back, I scratch your back, be very careful. Republicans have tried this in the past and it never works. The Democrats always lie, cheat, and steal. Always, always, always. I don't believe Donald's stupid enough to not know that, but you'd be surprised how many Republicans have made that stupid deal and the Democrats always shove it in their face. So that's the first word of caution. The second one is whatever deal he makes, he needs to get it in his hands before the 2018 elections. And here's why. If something happens and the Democrats take over the House, that means Nancy Pelosi becomes Speaker of the House. If Nancy Pelosi is Speaker of the House, there will be no more deals with Trump. None. No matter what was said in the past, no matter what agreements they made, even if it's appropriated, the Democrats will go back and unappropriate it. So it has to be in his hands by the 2018 elections. And I hope he understands that. So, and then Trump, I think, is beginning to understand that the Republican Party is not the same as the Tea Party. And that kind of leads me to the last thing I wanted to talk about today. Now, I have been saying for a while now that the parties that I grew up with, the Republican Party and the Democrat Party, those parties are dead. They've been dead for a while. They've been dying for a while. But they were dead. It just took the election of Donald Trump to expose it to the light, to let the rest of the world see that the parties are dead. So, under the old order, the Democrats and the Democratic policies were headed by people like Hillary and Obama. Those were the Democrats. The Republicans were W, Romney, McCain, Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan. Those were all Republicans. And then the Tea Party was headed by Sarah Palin, Trump, Cruz. This was the Tea Party. And those were the three basically established parties. However, that was who was heading them in the death of those parties. The parties that have arisen out of the ashes that Trump has exposed, there are still three parties. There's the establishment, there's the left wing, and then there's the Tea Party. Now, the establishment is still headed by people like Hillary and Obama, Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, John McCain, Romney, W. Those are all establishment guys. Remember, when Trump was running for president, we expected the Democrats to come out against him. Guess which one of those Republicans, establishment, came out and said publicly they were not voting for Trump? W, Romney, McCain, McConnell, and Ryan, all establishment. That's the new party. And it's not just Republicans in the establishment. There is establishment Republicans and establishment Democrats, and they all come together to form one party. Now, they don't say they do. They still use Democrats and Republicans as monikers. Let me give you an example of how I can prove this. Remember when Jeff Sessions came under fire, when Trump spent that whole week tweeting about him? Remember that? And everybody was in a fury. For that whole week, the press would go to Congress and interview people, members of Congress. Remember, Sessions was a senator from Alabama, been there for a lot of years. Guess who was the first people up saying good things about Jeff Sessions and what a great guy he was and was Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, and Democrats. The amount of Democrats that came out and supported him were all establishment Democrats and Republicans. They all had one thing in common, and that was to circle around and protect their own. That's what the establishment does. It doesn't really matter to the establishment party who is president. What matters is, are they part of the establishment? When W was in there, they had no problems. When Obama came in, he was the left. He was not part of the establishment, but he pulled enough of the Democrats with him that he was able to get some things done. Remember, Obamacare passed by one vote. And towards the end of his term, remember when he got elected the second time, he said, I don't need Congress. I have a pen and a phone. I'll legislate by executive order. Because the establishment had turned against him. That continued when Trump was elected. He's not part of the establishment either. But they knew that right out of the chute. That's why 8 months later, he's only got 50 people confirmed and in office, with 450 pending. The Republican Party is dead. The Democratic Party is dead. There's the establishment, the left, and the Tea Party. The establishment is comprised of the mainstream Republican, mainstream Democrats. Republicans who have been in Congress for a long time that hold what they call moderate views, the centrist, as the press likes to call them. Those people are all establishment, all of them. The only Republicans that are not part of the establishment is the Tea Party. There are no Democrats in the Tea Party. They are only conservative, what used to be Republican, but they are conservative, right-wing party. And they are that party. And if it was not for the Tea Party, the establishment would control everything. That's why we have to let that judge in Alabama win. He is a Tea Party conservative, and we need him in there. Now, the left, remember, we have the establishment. We've established that they are the mainstream Democrats, mainstream Republicans, and within the government, they are the embedded civil servants that nobody can fire. And their whole job is to protect their turf. That's what establishment does. We call it the swamp. We as American people call it the swamp. So the mainstream Republicans, mainstream Democrats, and all the civil servants, that's all the swamp. So when you say drain the swamp, what you're saying is get rid of all the establishment. And I agree with that. We need to drain the swamp. And Trump, once again, is not holding up to his point. We got rid of one swamp rat. We got rid of Comey. And there's so much illegal stuff going on with him, I can't believe he hasn't been prosecuted. We know that Hillary committed multiple felonies. Why she's not being investigated or in prison is beyond me, but the establishment is in control of that. Same with the Clinton Foundation. Same with the Loretta Lynch deal. Same with the Imran Awan deal. All of these organizations within the government and in the swamp, their whole existence is to keep the swamp intact and to protect their own. Comey is being protected. Hillary is being protected. Clinton Foundation is being protected. Loretta Lynch is being protected. All of Jeff Sessions also is a swamp rat. He's being protected. We cannot and will not ever get anything done as long as Trump does not go in there and start chopping heads off. Instead of him going in there learning to be a politician, he needs to go in there and do what we elected him to do. Start telling everybody you're fired. Oh, you're a civil servant? Great, sue me. I'll see you in court. Which brings me to an issue I hadn't planned on talking about, but I do want to talk about it. I think the number one thing Trump could do to clean out the swamp, get rid of the swamp rats, is to take the civil service to court to have that power eliminated. Civil servants, once you get a job, should not be there for life. That's like getting a judgeship. You know, if you get a federal judgeship that you don't on the Supreme Court of any state or federal, that's a lifetime appointment. Why should civil servants get the same benefits that judges get? That makes absolutely no sense at all to me. But yet, that is in effect what has happened. The reason that he can't get rid of a lot of them is because Obama went through there and reclassified a lot of those people in those jobs from appointed to civil servants. I don't know about you, but I don't get that kind of protection in my job. If I don't perform, I get fired. That's the way it should be. And I think it should be the same in the government. I mean, if you're willing to take an appointment to get a job from a politician, then you ought to be willing to lose your job based on a politician. But you don't get to have it both ways. That's just patently wrong. All right. Now I want to go to a section of the program I call current events. As you know, the reason that we do this is so that we can chronicle events and political happenings at a space in time, so that when things happen down the road, we can always come back and we can look at it and find out exactly what week it was that something went wrong or something went right, or when exactly did that happen. What else was going on when Hurricane Harvey hit, and what else was going on when Irma hit, politically or current events. So that's what I want to do. I want to, so this section is called current events. I pulled out, I think, 3 in my stack here. Now the first one, I did a program, or several programs, over the last couple of years about Kaepernick in the NFL and his taking a knee. First off, I felt like the coach should have either fired him or suspended him. That's an un-American thing to do, to take a knee during the Star Spangled Banner. First off, the team was wrong. And then the NFL allowed it to go on, which meant all the other teams were open to it. Now, every black that feels like it takes a knee, or white people that are sympathetic with them and their cause are taking a knee. That, to me, is disrespectful to the flag. And evidently, a lot of Americans thought so too. So this year it comes out as we get ready to start the NFL season this week. Television share on NFL has gone down for the first time in forever. And I would think it went down quite significantly. I don't think it says in here. As I recall, it was 6 to 8% that it went down. Now think about this. This is a multi-billion-dollar affair on TV. Every Sunday there are at least three televised games, and probably more, and many more in local markets. So if you take 6% away from that, that is major, major cash. So that's where we got to where we are. I think Americans just got fed up with politicizing the football games. So this article was in the paper. It says the NFL's plan to win you back. Now, there was an interesting thing here. It goes through and it talks about all of the reasons why the NFL lost share. And here are some of them. Competition with the internet. I can't remember the other ones off the top of my head. But in this article, and if you can see here how long this article is, you see that? In this article, it's mentioned twice, and those 2 times mentioned in passing. It's not an issue as far as the people writing this article about Kaepernick. There is one picture of a guy taking a knee. But the whole body of this is that the NFL has so many pulls on it that the American people, they're trying to win them back. What isn't said is the major reason is Americans are sick and tired of having everything politicized. These guys are making millions of dollars a year. I want them to go play football. I do not want them giving me their political viewpoint based on something they do. They may as well be wearing a shirt that says Black Lives Matter. I mean, so anyway, the NFL doesn't get it. The press doesn't get it, or else they do and they're ignoring it. I hope we as Americans continue to boycott them. Do not watch any football on TV. Wait till it comes out on the internet. But I would definitely not watch it, and I'm not actually. Now, the next one I want to talk about. The headline reads: Options for removing Kim Jong-un from Korea. Now, the options we could do, there are several. One of them would be to just go in there and assassinate him. But I want to go through this. This article lists about 5 or 6 of them. He said we could remove him diplomatically. The U.S. can put far more pressure on countries to cut or restrict ties with North Korea. Well, that's not going to work because the 90% of their trade is only done with China. A small percentage is with the rest of them. By information, defectors are already sending information into the North about the outside world. Yes, their country is cut off. Yes, they have no access to the internet or anything that goes on in the outside world, and by introducing it, it lets them know how bad off they are. That is all true. That will not remove Kim Jong-un, because that, in order for that scenario to play out, the people there would have to have A, the will, B, some outside backing, and C, arms. They have nothing. They're barely surviving. So no, that's not possible. By military, building up missile defenses with conventional forces. Sure, we've done that, and I condone that. I think we do need to build up the anti-missile defenses in Taiwan, Japan, the Philippines, South Korea, Guam, all of our allies over there. We should be sending in multiple anti-missile locations, not to mention putting a couple of ships out there with anti-missile capabilities on them. By economic, Donald Trump tweeted Sunday that he is considering sanctions against anyone who does business with North Korea. Well, again, that's a straw man. So let's say I'm doing business with North Korea. Okay, so you're going to put sanctions on me. Okay, that's fine. Then I'll have the corporation that I own and another corporation that I own hire my cousin's brother's uncle's aunt to do the same business. The money still goes into the same account. It just makes it a little bit tougher. That's not going to work. Financial. The U.S. can cut off North Korea's access to financial intermediaries that conduct transactions in U.S. dollars. That's true, and that might work, except North Korea, again, is friends with China. Their major source of exchange is not the dollar. It's the yuan, the Chinese. By intelligence, the Proliferation Security Initiative began under George W. Bush administration, tracked and intercepted North's weapon exports. The program could be enlarged to block other exports forbidden under United Nations sanctions. Sanctions don't work. I mean, they're uncomfortable, and they serve a purpose, but it's not going to make regime change. It's not going to get rid of him. He doesn't care about his people, and anything he wants, he's just going to go to China and China will go out and get it for them in the market. So that's not going to work either. And I think the last one here is legal. A UN Commission of Inquiry in 2014 reported evidence of human rights abuses in the North's huge network of prison camps. Okay, that's not going to work either. Who do you think the majority members in the UN are? They're all thugs. Almost every one of them on the UN, in the UN, have major civil rights, human right violations in their country. Iran, Iraq, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, North Korea, China, Russia, all of them. They all have human right violations. So to pick that up on North Korea, first off, he doesn't care. And secondly, it's not going to make any difference. The only thing that man understands is brute force. We need to exert brute force. Now, we can do it defensively for now, but at some point, somebody's going to have to tell him, this is unacceptable. Your behavior is unacceptable. We have talked to you. We mollycoddled you. We have given you money. We've tolerated your little tantrums. Now it's time to pay. And we just need to go in there and physically take him out. Now here's another article. This one says, hard truths govern the North Korea crisis. He goes through and he cites certain things that some of the things I had just talked about. But he talks about the reason all of these things won't work. And one of them is that he talks about problems with the allies. And I talked about that earlier when I said, first off, he has no trading allies. And he has managed to supply his government. And I just found this out. Do you know who the #1 producer and shipper of methamphetamine in the world is? It's the North Korean government. The North Korean government manufactures, as a business entity for the government, methamphetamine and ships it around the world. That is one of their major sources of income. So their allies, I mean, they have no trading allies. They have China, and they do a little bit of business with Russia. And then the rest of their 5 or 6% of their business that they get around the world, even if you cut them all off, even if you were able to do that, they just go to China or Russia. So trying to do anything with the allies of North Korea is going to be pointless. It's going to be a political thing, not a realistic thing. Then he talks about the limits of sanctions. It says, right now, the Trump administration's focus, understandably, is on imposing tougher economic sanctions to force North Korea to feel significant new pain. Yet there are limits to what sanctions can accomplish. 6 decades as a pariah state have forced North Korea to develop an elaborate black market system. Sanctions aren't going to work. We talked about that. The need for diplomacy. We've been doing that for 50 years. It doesn't work. With diplomacy, he has managed to get the bomb. And with diplomacy, with more diplomacy, he's going to perfect it. Now, here's how this guy ends this article. And this upset me. This is why I included this. And this surprisingly was in the Wall Street Journal. It says, the most urgent need is to negotiate an end to North Korea's missile and weapons tests. Yeah, but we've been doing that for 30 years. I mean, dang. Various approaches have been tried over the years, most notably 6-party talks involving US, China, Russia, Japan, South Korea, and the North. The results disappointed. No kidding. So now you say the most important thing is to continue? Mostly because of North Korean chicanery. The best hope for a different outcome now lies in the possibility that North Korea's actions have at last hardened international and particularly Chinese resolve to make this time different. This guy's living in La La Land. China, believe it or not, China is not upset that North Korea has the bomb. Remember, the only reason China keeps North Korea as a partner is because North Korea is a physical barrier to the North being able to come to their country. If the whole Korean peninsula was democratic, the United States would have military all up and down there. We would have total access to the Chinese border. So, and remember, China is the one that gave them the ability to get nuclear weapons. China wants them to be nuclear. China wants them to engage the United States because if they engage the United States, they're not engaging China. So for anybody who's talking about negotiating and thinks that China is going to step in there and be a strong ally for the United States against North Korea is living in La La Land. And that's why people like that, when they write those stupid articles that say how much we need to negotiate. We need to negotiate more with Kim Jong-un. We negotiated with his dad. We negotiated with him. They're liars and cheaters and manipulators, and China is not going to step in. I mean, play that scenario out. Let's say that China does become a big ally of ours, and they get rid of Kim Jong-un, and then the Korean Peninsula goes democratic. Is that in China's best interest? No, because now they've got American military installations all along their border. They don't want that. They'd rather have somebody they can control. They will sacrifice North Korea when the time comes. That will happen. They will throw North Korea to the dogs as long as they can keep a Chinese influence on that part. And they would like to have influence all over the whole Korean Peninsula. Because if they can take South Korea, then the United States has no access at all. Right now, we have limited access along the 38th parallel. So people that think China's going to help at all are living in La La Land. And that has been proven true for 3 decades. And if this guy has his way, it's going to be another 3 decades. And that crazy guy, Kim Jong-un, may very well start a nuclear war. Well, I think that's about all I wanted to talk about this week. I think we chronicled current events. We talked about D.A.C.A. We talked about Trump making a deal with the Democrats, and we talked about the realignment of the parties as we know them in the United States. Thanks for watching This Week in Politics.